Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play cast brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. I am your host, Mike Byrne, aka Magicman, and this is episode 321. We're recording on December 5th. Oh no, December 6th now, and you're going to watch it on the 6th too. We're going to post it the same day. We've got a lot of sequels adding new content. We've got Riot shaking some things up and paying some money. And we've got some games closing down and a little bit of weird news to go through. Joining me to cover all of it, Mr. Jason Winter. How are you, sir?
You know, you're right. It is Friday.
It is Friday.
And I was also here on Monday. So this is like my first 5-day week in about a month.
Yeah, because you traveled to see the family. Then last week there was no show because we had Thanksgiving here in the States.
I don't know. I don't know that I like this sort of thing. I want to go back to like a 3-day week. Can we do that? Oh, wait. Today is Friday, so I can just slack off, right?
Right. That's the way it is. Yeah, I'm going to post this. I'll post the first look. Yeah, I mean, you wrote a Riot article. You're done.
Yeah, there you go.
Also on the line, Miss Quinlan Bowers. What's up, Q?
I never go anywhere. I'm here all the freaking time.
Yeah, this was my first trip in like 3 years.
Yeah, the last trip I took was when I went to BlizzCon when I was still working for Game Breaker. And then it was a work trip.
That's some time ago. That is some time ago. So yeah, no show last week. Thursday was Thanksgiving here in the United States. We hope all of you that celebrate the holiday had a safe one and enjoyed some time with your loved ones. Of course, we're going to have some schedule stuff. I mean, we might as well go through it now real quick here. We will have a show next week and the week after, but then that will be our last show of 2019 because the following Thursday will be the day after Christmas, and the following Thursday will be the day after New Year's. And obviously, there's not going to be a ton of news those 2 weeks, and people will be in and out with the holidays and things like that. So we have today, next week, and the following week to finish off the year. I'm sure one of those shows will be going through some of our top X lists for whatever's released this year, whatever closed this year, all the fun stuff that Jason normally throws at Q&I. Here's 15 games, guys. Pick 5. So look
Things that I usually don't do until about the last week of the year, but okay.
Right. Well, no, normally you have like 1 or 2 of them out by the time we do the last cast.
A little bit.
And then the following 2 weeks, you pump out a bunch more because we don't have a lot of video content on those 2 weeks. But heading into the end of 2019, feels like just yesterday we were doing last year's Christmas shows. So let's get started with the news. First up, we got a lot of sequels adding new content right now, and I'm going to go a little bit out of order from what we have here on the show notes, guys. I want to start with the second one because I think that's going to be the quickest discussion. Guild Wars 2 already has had a bunch of additions with the living story and everything over the last month or so, but now, Jason, there are capes, and that's all that really matters, right?
You know, I remember, again, the first MMO I ever played was City of Heroes. Like, I actually played for real. And of course, superheroes, they got to have capes, right? But they didn't at launch, and they brought them in like a year later. Storyline-wise, it was, they were commemorating some hero who died, and everyone took off their capes for a year or whatever. But it was like, we couldn't figure out how to put them in the game yet. Something like that. So that took a year, whereas Guild Wars 2 now has been out like 7 years, and they're just getting into capes now, which they had in the first game. That's how you showed like what guild you were belonging to. You had your guild logo on your cape or your cloak or whatever it was called. And now they're just getting into it in Guild Wars 2, and there are capes.
Capes bug me. I know this sounds stupid. I know. Capes bug me in MMOs, and it's probably for a reason that nobody else cares about. But I hate graphic models of characters' legs clipping through the cape as you run. That irritates the shit out of me. I would rather not have capes, I think.
What we heard for a long time in Guild Wars 2 was that the reason they didn't have capes, because in Guild Wars 1, everybody's a human. Okay, so no problem. Just capes
right
on everyone. What we heard in Guild Wars 2 was that the Char were the reason we don't have capes. Because you have 4 races, all of which stand upright, bipeds, whatever. And then the Char, he's hunched over cat beasts or whatever. So it was tougher for them to like figure out how to do the cape to drape along back of them or whatever.
Oh,
And I've seen a few
yeah.
graphical glitches regarding them, but that's what I'd heard for a long time. We don't have capes in Guild Wars 2 because of the char playable characters.
You know, and I can see that. I can see that. Like, and
Yeah.
in Final Fantasy 14, there's a lot of because you can do the whole glamour system, right? Whatever gear and make your helm look like this particular helm, or your chest piece look like this particular chest piece. Transmogrify for you,
Yeah.
World of Warcraft folks. There's a lot of stuff in there that like just isn't able to be used on certain races, particularly like the new Vieira and stuff with the bunny ears and things like that. There's certain helm pieces that you cannot glamour onto them. So yeah, I get it, but Q, that's like bugged me since like World of Warcraft days and EverQuest days is running, and I literally jumped into WoW this past week. Why? I have no idea. I didn't jump into Classic because Classic just holds no interest for me. I have nostalgia for that, but I don't want to go and do it again. So, but I had pre-ordered Battle for Azeroth and just realized like last week, never played it. Like I pre-ordered the fucking thing and never played it. So I just jumped in like this past week, and I think I got from 110 to 116 or 117, still going through the story. I only had like 2 gaming sessions, enjoying it, but the capes did the same thing. They still do it. Q. It bugs the hell out of me.
Well, if that, see, I thought when you were going to say it that you were going to say what bugged you is how they like clip into whatever your mount is.
That too, yeah. And like I totally get it, right? Making that a solid state object really starts to create some weird things where like if it's bumping up against something, then it just sticks straight out like a table. Like if you made the cape a solid interactable hitbox type item, when you got on that weird mount, then your cape would, if it had like my chair, right? See this chair? If this was the
close to people sitting in chairs. Oh god.
Mount, like there was a saddle with this high back, then my cape would be like this, straight up in the air. I get it. Yeah, I get it. I get why it's that way. I just don't like it. Jason, a little bit of a status check here because I was talking to some people while playing World of Warcraft. Some who are
really you actually talk to people while playing WoW. Is that a good idea?
Yeah, well,
probably
no,
not.
People I know.
Okay, all right.
Or have known through World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy.
You weren't all over Baron's chat.
No, God no. And they were talking about Guild Wars 2 because some of them go back and forth and they're kind of burnt out on WoW right now, so jump into Guild Wars 2. People are still miffed about the whole what the hell are they called? The templates, the template things.
Oh, the build templates. Okay.
Yeah, people still miffed about this. What's going on? They're, like I'm hearing pay to win, although the term doesn't really mean much anymore. But yeah, people not happy still.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard nothing much new on that, but neither from ArenaNet saying we're going to change something, or from the players saying, the people who are pissed about it have either accepted it or just moved on or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see. The next quarter's financials are going to be, or basically the Q4 financials are going to be interesting, not only for them, but also like for Blizzard with the whole Hearthstone banning thing. It's going to be really interesting to see what companies do with that.
Not to shortchange the update, it wasn't all about capes. Build templates will now be remembered when you go from PvE to PvP or WVW, and re-equipped when you return from one activity to the other. There's new HUD elements that let you hide certain parts so you can, as Jason put it in his piece, get that perfect screenshot. And there's some gameplay tweaks as well. So there is quite a bit of stuff going on here in the Guild Wars 2 update. But out of the 3 we're going to talk about, it is the smallest of the 3. So next up, let's talk about Destiny 2, who in just a mere 4 days here will be marching into its new season after the free-to-play launch. Season of Dawn, set to run on the 10th of December through March 9th. We're going to go back and talk about Osiris and New War in that whole time. The Red Legion attempting to change history again. There is actually quite a bit in store for this season that they've already advertised, but still a lot kind of left behind the curtain, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I felt about the first season as well. It's like it started off a little slow, and then they had a lot of stuff that you could go do as you got through it all. For me, at least, I'm kind of falling a little behind now. I haven't played a whole lot in the last week or so. But it's going to be interesting to see how much I really want to devote myself to it this time around. Now that it's not the big new thing anymore, at least for me. Now that they're putting in this new stuff and doing more. Like I get that they're wanting to focus on their nostalgia and get the Destiny 1 players, people who played that, and get all their stuff. But I wish they would have had, either with the last one or now with this one, something that's more of a fresh start. That doesn't feel like you're having to know all this lore and feel like you know all this stuff from Destiny 2, from Destiny 1 rather, or even earlier in Destiny 2. The fact that it's all still kind of this nostalgia, going back to the past kind of thing. For all the new players they were trying to bring in, that doesn't seem like the greatest approach.
We do have the Season 9 calendar, Q, something that they have put up each time. I'm going to try and bring it up on the screen here real quick. That way we could take a look at it. Now, we should note for some of you, there are items in here that are free to all Destiny players, but then there are other items that are locked behind a purchase of the Season Pass. So obviously, as we scroll through here, we see the rank rewards. For those of you that already play Destiny 2, you know how this works. The top bar there is, of course, your free bar, and your bottom bar are the rewards you get if you own the Season Pass. Hey, you got to buy that. Taking a look at some of the Season Pass rewards, you can get the exotic scout rifle, symmetry and exclusive seasonal armor sets when you get the Season Pass. Again, some things requiring the Season Pass, some things for free. The artifact, seasonal artifact, that's going to be available to everybody. That always typically is. But content-wise, to repair the sundial, these are different stories and activities, this also requires the Season Pass. Now, Jason, do we have a price point on the Season Pass?
Should be $10, I imagine. That's what the last one was.
$10. I don't know how much the last one was because I had bought the expansion.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what I paid.
I didn't see the price. Q, I know, this really, who cares on your side of this, right? This really isn't your type of thing anyway. But I do want to get your take on Destiny 2 arguably had a really good free-to-play launch. They had a good system in place. Jason and I both thought, me as a more experienced player, Jason as a newer player, that they could have done a little more to reduce the learning curve of newer players that had never played and were just jumping in for free to play. But it looks like they're continuing on that same trend: content, raids, Iron Banners, all the different events, and I think that this is just going to continue to make Destiny 2 players happy, provided that the story content isn't like 3 missions, one and done type deal. I think they're just stick to the formula that worked, and why not? I can't blame them.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I obviously haven't played that much Destiny, partially because, it originally just, when the first Destiny came out, it was console only and, all of that jazz. But my buddy Yod was a heavy Destiny player. And to be honest, as far as like the story content, I don't even think he cared that much about how short story content was, because he was just constantly popping in to do the same shit over and over and over again anyway. So, but the more content, the more things that you have to do, obviously, the better it is, because there are lulls and crap like that they would go through. So I think, yeah, as long as they keep it up and just kind of keep rolling out some stuff, they should be doing just fine. Destiny players do seem to be pretty dedicated.
Yeah, just a bit.
It's interesting to note too, and when you look at like the Steam charts, for instance, it launched with around 250,000 people at first, 250,000. It's gone down somewhat since then. It's down around 100,000 now. And the question is now, what of that is free to play, gets a bunch of people in, or also a new season gets a bunch of people in? When the new season starts up, how much is it going to jack back up? Or is all those numbers just from free players doing whatever? So Mike's pulling up the Steam charts page right now.
No. You're right. It was $10. I wanted to double check since we gave a number. Cost of the pass.
I definitely paid $10 on it last month. I know this.
1,000 silver, or about $10 in real life cash.
And I thought that was great too. $10 for basically 2.5 months of loot, basically.
I'm waiting for them to do what Fortnite does, Q, and Call of Duty now does too, that they have introduced, and not free to play obviously, but they've introduced the same type of season pass mechanism. And we predicted on this show a while ago that was kind of where things were going to start to go as the loot box talk started heating up. that the season pass or battle pass or whatever you wanted to call it was going to start coming to the forefront. And it seems to be the case with a lot of high-profile titles now migrating to that formula. But I'm waiting for Destiny 2 to do what Fortnite does and what Call of Duty does, where they give you this for $10 or spend 25 and we'll unlock a set number of those, 100 tiers automatically and give you those rewards. We don't see that yet.
Yes, you do.
Oh, do we?
You can buy levels.
No. I know you could buy them individually. I'm talking about...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Call of Duty lets you do that too. I'm talking like Fortnite and Call of Duty both do give us $10 and you have the season pass. Give us $20 or $25, whatever it is for your particular game, and you get all the season pass stuff, and we unlock the first 20 levels or the first 50 levels of the battle pass automatically, and you get all those rewards. Where I think Destiny 2 kind of... needs to stay away from that is if you look at those rewards, some of them are gear-based. Some of them are gear-based. And they're not top tier or anything like that, and you're still going to have to, dismantle or infuse other items to get the item level up, but some of it is gear-based. Some of it is boost-based. And so when you start giving that type of stuff away, you start treading on dangerous PR ground, even though it's, anybody with some experience in the game knows those aren't huge modifiers.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting. Check it out. There is a ton of content for free players, and then obviously a ton of content. They've got the basics mapped out all the way through March, but I'm sure we'll see some surprises along the way from Destiny. Finally, last sequel, probably the biggest out of the three here as far as what we're getting, Path of Exile 2, which we still don't have any release date or anything of that type of nature. But, Jason, you did do an interview with Chris Wilson over at Grinding Gear Games, managing director, and we did get a few answers to some questions that we had. The first of which being, will the game be a separate client, or will it be kind of in its own launcher, pick one of two or three things? They did answer that for us.
Yeah, it's going to be using the same launcher you used before, and it'll just be like how currently you can pick something from the standard league, or you can pick the current league that's going on. This is just going to be another option in that. So,
how does that work with like the different creating different characters or the conquerors of the Atlas marks? Like, how does that work? Do things transcribe from one game to the next? I'm a little confused.
I don't think they do, because you've got... Well, I mean, it does have the shared endgame, like the Atlas is still there apparently, but I don't think you can transfer characters between, Path of Exile 1 and 2, because it's supposed to be like a 20-year difference. So I don't think that's an option. The Atlas is there forever, though, I guess.
Q, they are saying that the campaign will be a little bit shorter, which I think it was a surprise to me. I thought this was, going to be a little... a meatier chunk of content. They advertised it as like 7 acts. And I remember when Path of Exile first launched, it was like 3 acts, and then Act 4 came, and Act 5 after all these different times. But overall, in length, they're targeting the Path of Exile 2 campaign to be a little shorter, because they've received feedback that it takes too long to get to maps currently, and because they want players to prefer the Path of Exile 2 campaign for new character creation, because it's the new, better, sexier example. What's your take on that?
Well, I do think I remember that kind of being a complaint even a couple of years ago when Barney and I were playing, that it seemed like, you would go in, you'd roll the new character for the new season or whatever, and it felt like it took too long to get to the point you wanted to get to sometimes. So, I mean, I think as long as they're listening to the players, and this is based on a solid amount of player input rather than just, well, we just decided this, I think it's totally fine if it's shorter. If they just, if it's just an arbitrary, well, we just think this will be the way it is, instead of actually listening to player input, then, it's a mistake. But I do remember that being a complaint. So I think it's probably a smart way to go. Plus, I mean, it's not like they can't go and add more, just like they did with Path of Exile 1.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jason, I was intrigued that you brought this question up, and I'm going to read the question verbatim here, because when we do these interviews, there's obviously things that we want to ask, right? As gamers, just like you watching this show, there are questions we want to ask. And sometimes we want to ask them in exactly the same way you guys do. What the fuck were you thinking? Why the hell would you do that? Don't you think you're bilking players of money? Don't you think this comes off like this? Don't you think so? But we have to do it with a little more tact, right? We can ask those questions, and Jason and I have, and Q too, have never shied away from asking those questions. Go look at our interviews. There are some uncomfortable questions for developers. I remember in a live interview kind of getting into it with Perfect World Entertainment years back on a live recorded interview.
Even better, look at our drafts of questions. Look at the stuff we send them and the stuff that they don't answer when we get it back.
Right. But I did like this because this question, because it did cater to that whole idea of that I think a lot of people share. I do. That Blizzard taking Diablo in the direction that it has through Diablo 3 and looking like what they're going to do in Diablo 4 has kind of done what Blizz does, right? Takes a nice concept and makes it more openly accessible to a casual player while still doing some things to try and retain the hardcore. And Path of Exile kind of, it's daunting. Like, I have tried to get into Path of Exile a few times only to go, I don't know if I have the time for this. And so you took this question to them, which I really appreciated. So Jason said, you said that Conqueror's endgame will be more challenging than before. I was going to ask something about whether you'd ever consider making things simpler so as to appeal better to the non-16-hour-a-day grinders. But I realized that maybe that's never going to be your intent. The way people compare your game to the Diablo series and its relative simplicity makes me think that you're going for that hardcore crowd, while Blizzard is aiming more at a more mass-market casual crowd. Does that seem about right to you? Is that your overall vision of Path of Exile? And Chris Wilson...
This was basically a stream of consciousness question that I kind of just wrote as I was thinking. So.
No, it's fine. And Chris Wilson, I thought, had an interesting answer to this one.
Yeah, he says, we certainly do skew a bit more towards hardcore gamers, though have been pretty successful at converting mid-core gamers to hardcore ones. There's also quite a large casual contingent who never make it through the end game, but instead enjoy the easier, earlier parts of Path of Exile. What's wrong?
That's me.
Oh, okay, that's you. Okay, I thought you were like, what's wrong with my mic?
No,
but I was say, yeah, that's me too. Like, I got through the 10 acts. I tried to do some Atlas stuff, and oh my god, did I get my ass kicked.
Right?
now the point is, I haven't played since, so maybe that's not the greatest approach, but, I wish there was more I could do that wouldn't just grind my face into dust, but...
Lots of sequels, getting lots of content. Do we all agree that this is probably coming out before Diablo 4 still? We think Grinding Gears is going to get to market first? I think there's no way they don't get to market first. I think they absolutely get to market first.
I don't know. I think Blizzard's got a lot of people and a lot of money. More than, well, granted, they have some Tencent money to...
Oh, well, speaking about that, though, too, I think it's important to note that in the interview, at least for me, I found out Grinding Gear is a little bigger than I remember it.
Talk about hiring, yeah. 150 or whatever he said, 145?
Yeah, it's like 145 people there now. Like, you always think of Grinding Gear as this smaller, indier type team that's established now and everything. Mm-hmm. And they were like 20, 30, 40-person team at one point. I totally just haven't kept track of it, and you brought that up as being a smaller team. They were like, well, actually, we have about 145 heads now. Holy shit, that's a lot of people with one product. Not counting, the mobile stuff that they're working on.
Sure.
So lots of sequels, getting lots of new content. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Moving on, some interesting Riot Games news on two fronts. Let's start with the weird portion, then we'll start with the costly portion as far as money goes. Riot is letting other studios make League of Legends games. I don't know how I feel about this, Q.
I mean, it kind of makes sense to me. It depends on what kind of games they're wanting to make, right? Because they're a studio that's used to making certain kinds of games, and yes, they did expand to do other types. But there are studios that, like, if they're wanting to make a particular type of game, there are other studios that have, probably been doing it longer and know what they're doing. So instead of trying to teach a whole bunch of people or hire a whole bunch of people that know how to make this one type of game, they just do the licensing bit, because it just makes everything easier.
Yeah, Jason, and it looks too, I mean, there's no titles, no dates or anything yet. They just confirmed that there are multiple titles in the works. And they're working under the banner of Riot Forge, a new label. And they're supposed to be focusing on single-player games that just kind of expand the lore. So maybe I can see this working to their benefit with League of Legends existing fans, because that sounds like to me like take your heroes that have the most compelling lore and storyline them into a single player game, right?
Yeah, I mean, we know I still follow him on Twitter, our good friend Scott Hawks from Gamebreaker. He writes lore for League of Legends now, so he's always on there doing like questions and answers about various stuff. So it's definitely something they've developed, something they have really worked on. So the notion that they could get that into, say, an RPG, for instance, that's something they've probably wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah.
And probably when they were working on those other games that they announced, Legends of Runeterra and the other stuff they've been doing, they thought, well, could we do an RPG too? And they're like, well, when there's so many resources and so on, well, what if we farm it out to someone else and then we'll publish it? Hey, okay, we'll do that. So maybe that's the direction they decided to go with some of those other projects they had in mind.
Yeah, but there are dangers to this, Q, and we've seen this happen before when you start letting other companies tinker with your IP. Ultimately, yeah, of course, Riot Games probably has thumb stamp approval on big key decisions and where lore goes and gameplay and stuff like that. But we've seen other brands take hits when they do this. Most notably, the one that comes to my mind is Star Wars, right? I mean, Star Wars...
That's actually the one I was thinking of as you were talking, with Star Wars. Yeah, because it has... depending on the game developer working on whichever game, it has suffered in several places. So,
hell, I mean, most notably and most recently, Battlefront 2, where Disney seemed to be like, maybe EA isn't the company for this because this is really damaging to the brand. So there are always those considerations. We'll have to see how it pans out. We'll keep an eye on titles. Most likely, I would not anticipate that these will be free-to-play titles, since they seem to be more in the single-player RPG realm of things, the way they're talking about them now. But we'll keep you posted, just in case. Before we move on from Riot Games, a little while back, we did report, had come to a settlement in a class action lawsuit against them over gender discrimination and other harassment type. Culture of sexism was a term that was thrown about in this lawsuit. We had reported that they came to a settlement, but what we didn't know was any details of the settlement. Q, now we do. And it's a big price tag.
Yeah, it as a lump sum, definitely $10 million divided up among the female employees that worked for them. I think it was between a 5-year period.
Yeah, the last 5 years,
2014 to now. It didn't. None of the reports that I saw specified how many women that actually accounts for, and it also noted that the division of the funds was based on like 3 factors: how long they worked there, what their positions were, and I cannot remember the third one, but it was basically like kind of a tiered thing. Obviously, if you were in a higher tier position, you're probably deserving of, like, part of it was based on the fact, right, that they were making less money than they should have,
right, than their
compared to their male counterparts. So part of it was making up for that based on their positions as well. So, but yeah, it's not a small amount of money. I'm sure it's not the biggest amount of money for a company like Riot. But...
Yeah, I mean, $10 million drop in the bucket for a company the size of Riot with Tencent behind them. You know, $10 million is, where'd that line go on the ledger? I can't see it. Yeah, I lost it. It's not that big of a money, but it is a statement. It is a headline. And you and I were talking about this behind the scenes. And I because initially when this was settled, Jason, I was kind of disappointed. I was like, wait, this was a fight worth fighting. Go see it through. Why did this get settled? Ugh. Then, all these months later, fast forward, and you have a headline that says Riot paying $10 million to female employees. I think I settled that too, right? I think I settled just for the headline at that point.
And that's also because cases like that are really difficult to
absolutely
prove in court.
Absolutely.
So if you can get that and get out, you're probably good.
I don't know any facts inside, but I think this one
Sure.
had more than ample proof.
Even so.
We're estimating via reports that there's approximately about 1,000 women that will be eligible to receive the payout. This does not include, to Q's point, some of the people that I have seen on Twitter that were the initial breakers of this story, who either left the company or received a severance and left the company. So there are some eligibility requirements that some people are a little miffed at, but overall very happy with the way this ended. Now, it's not just monetary either. According to the settlement, Riot does need to do some other things, like improve its systems for reporting sexual discrimination and harassment, review all pay, be more transparent on hiring and promotion practices, and they're going to have the creation of employee groups to monitor the company's progress. So it's not just about money here. I think a huge statement is sent to a company that kind of needed smacked in the face a little bit if reports are to be believed, if not worse, if some of the more extreme reports are to be believed and are fact-based. So I hope this leads to nothing but good things for not only the employees, obviously, but Riot as a company going forward, Jason.
Mm-hmm. And other companies who will also see this as a case of, well, we need to clean up our act a little bit too.
Yeah, it's 2019, guys. Come on.
It's almost 2020.
Almost 2020.
Yeah.
Couple weeks. Before we move on to the weekly bombs, let's talk about some closings and the some news of the weird type thing. So let's start. Q, I'm going to go to you and your boys at CD Projekt Red. Not good news coming from them if you're a Gwent player on consoles.
Yeah, I get this, but it does suck. So basically, CD Projekt Red is ceasing support of the console versions of the game because they just recently rolled out the mobile version and have decided that they're spreading themselves a little bit thin, trying to support all these various versions. And the place where the game is getting the least play is console. They are giving everybody an opportunity to transfer their progress from console to their GOG account, which will allow them to play on PC or mobile without any problems. And I think it's like they're giving them a 6-month period to do it in. So, if you happen to miss the news now, you'll be okay for a little while. But yeah, for anybody who was just really hardcore about playing it on their PS4 or Xbox One, it sucks.
Jason, this seems really dumb to me. This is like, how do you launch into all these platforms? Like, I would have understood if they said, hey, it's just not doing well, and so it's not worth our time, and we're not doing it. But they tried to make this like a resource-based argument. Hey, we didn't realize how much work putting this on PC and mobile and console and all this was going to be. And so, yeah, we don't got enough peeps, so we're just going to stop the console. It seems like really bad planning on CDPR's part.
It seems a little short-sighted, and I think what they because you don't really hear about card games on consoles. It's not something you really hear about a whole lot. But I think they felt like, well, Witcher 3 is big on consoles. We got to get those console players in playing Gwent, and then they're like, well,
I do play some Hex on the PlayStation 4 still.
You and 3 other people.
Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like I'm saying. I think they thought that they could make it happen, and they couldn't.
Special note for you if you are playing on the consoles and you want to transfer your account to GOG, almost everything goes with you. If you're an Xbox One player, you'll be able to take your meteorite powder, which is one of the currencies in the game, with you. If you're on the PlayStation 4, however, they can't take your meteorite power from PlayStation 4 to GOG. So you'll have to spend your powder before requesting the account copy process. Little weird caveat there for PlayStation 4 players of Gwent. Let's see. What else do we got here? Jason, I didn't even know this was still open. Battleborn is shutting down early 2021. Now, this is 100% true. So Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, I'm out with the wife and the kids and my brother, and we're just, hitting some stores, looking at stupid stuff, right? Stuff nobody needs. And we're at Walmart, and we're looking at PlayStation, Xbox, Switch games, and whatever. They have a huge, just like bin of clearanced out games. They're like $10, right? They don't even care if you steal them. They're like, please fucking steal them. We don't want them anymore. You know, it's that level of security. Nobody's watching this bin. And so I'm looking and just sifting through it. Is there anything that I meant to pick up and didn't, or whatever?
A few more copies of Firefall.
Yeah, you
or
know,
not Firefall.
Wildstar,
yeah.
Right. Hey, I threw 10 of them away finally. I only have one box copy up there now. Was clearing off my shelves. Anyway, for more copies of other stuff. And I see Battleborn on the PlayStation 4. And this is Black Friday. So this is, let me see. Let me get some dates here for you. This is the
29th.
28th, 29th.
29th, yeah.
Yeah. Then this isn't true. It's not Black Friday. It's the week before. The week before Black Friday. Because this article surprised the hell out of me. Because I saw Battleborn in this bin, and it was like $14, and I was like, how are they still selling that? That game shut down. And and I'm like sitting there like debating with myself, like, and my son's there, my middle son Steven's there, and he and I had dabbled in Battleborn when it came out. We bought it for the Xbox One. And I said, didn't they shut that down? And he goes, well, you cover free-to-play games. You should know. And I was like, yeah, I know. I know. I'm thinking this shut down, though. Like, I seem to remember this shutting down. And he goes, well, maybe you're thinking about Evolve. And I said, well, no, Evolve went to, Evolve Stage 2 and then shut down, like, immediately. I remember that. I'm pretty sure it closed, didn't it? Like 20 minutes. This debate is raging in my head. I have my phone in my pocket, right? But for 20 minutes, instead of looking the damn thing up, I didn't. And then I never looked it up. I was just like, yeah, maybe it didn't, but I think it did. So fast forward like 4 or 5 days later, Jason in the chat says, oh, hey, I'm going to write this up. Battleborn shutting down. I was like, oh, shit, it didn't shut down. But now it is. I'm glad I didn't buy that $14 game I already had.
But here's the even weirder part, is that the news happened 2 weeks ago. So before you would have been there, been at the store.
Oh.
That's when the news release actually came out. So maybe you read it subconsciously and then thought, okay, that's happening. And then...
Or maybe...
Also, though,
I'm just psychic.
I can remember a couple weeks after APB shut down, the original APB. I remember seeing that in Walmart too.
Yeah,
so.
I was like totally convinced that it had already shut down. Like I was sure. I would have, if you made me bet money, I would have been like, I'm 70% sure it's shut down. Here's some money. Let's take a bet. I would have lost.
And you know what? Even on next year's Black Thursday, it still won't be shut down.
Yeah, that's
because
the
for whatever
weird
reason they're
thing.
taking so damn long to do it.
Yeah, that's the weird thing, Jason. When's this actually shutting down? Early
January
2020?
2021. What? It's like 14 months from now, or 13 months from now.
Like for all you Battleborn players, you got plenty of time to migrate and to something. I don't know. Just see what comes out next year.
They're shutting off currency, ability to buy currency on February 24th of next year. So then you've got 11 months to play after that. It's like, why?
Yeah. Why are you still buying currency if you know the game is shutting down?
Why do people play some of the games they play?
You have
why do people buy 11 copies of WildStar?
God damn it. So you have plenty of time to play it, but yeah, it's shutting down two birthdays from now. It's such a weird announcement. Yes. Moving on, a Counter-Strike global offensive player made a little AI to help catch cheaters, and Jason, it caught a few.
Yeah, like about 15,000 or 14,000, depending on where you read in an article.
Right.
But we believe it was about 15,000 cheaters. And yeah, he said it was built by one teenager in his bedroom in a far corner of the United Kingdom. So some random kid off in the far north of Scotland or something, whatever, just building this thing. And he found a bunch of cheaters, and Valve has actually acknowledged it, and he's been paid off for it.
Yeah, he's been paid about 11 grand. Yeah.
Which, less than $1 per cheater. I don't know. I don't know about that. That seems kind of crappy. But
well, I did like the way it was working was it was monitoring activity, and then it would log a report, right? on, hey, this person should probably be banned. It was like recommending bans. He didn't work with Valve and apply the bans. It would report activity, and then it would had some like a 90, what was it, like 96,
98.3 or something.
Yeah, 98+% of the reports resulted in a ban, which is ridiculously accurate. So yeah, and 11 grand for the problem here. So here's a quote from Two Eggs. That's the developer of it. That's their handle. I called it Hestia Net because, as you know, CSGO is infested with cheaters, and the goddess Hestia is a power of healing as well as power of hearth and fire. I wanted Hestia Net to heal over the game's infestation and to get rid of as many cheaters as possible. To many of us in the community, CSGO is a home, and Hestia is also the protector of the house. So kind of.
That just gave me such a warm feeling.
Right.
I like this.
Like
kid.
it's hard to warm my frozen heart, but that one did it.
Yeah. We're seeing a Christmas miracle here, right on the videocast. Can't break the hat out yet. It's not time.
Okay, how about a stocking?
Hey Q, are you gonna be part of Inferna's affiliate program?
That what the hell was it? 15 cents for every referred.
Yeah, and there is no like definition of what an active player is. So if you have no idea what we're talking about, by the way, Inferna is an upcoming free-to-play MMO today, or MMO RPG made by a smaller team. And they're having some trouble, obviously, spreading the word. It's a small project. So we've covered, they've sent us their press releases, and it is free to play, so we cover it.
It launches today, actually, according to Steam.
What's that?
It launches today, according to Steam.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
There you go.
So
not actually live yet.
What they're doing is keep an eye on it. Put up a piece if it launches. They're launching a kind of a contributor campaign. So if you apply and you're approved, you'll receive an affiliate link, and then you spread that around and get as many people to play as you can. And you'll get 15 cents per referred player who actively plays. Loose definition, we have no idea what actively means. And then to be paid, you need to earn at least $30. Now, that might sound absurd when you're talking about 15 cents for every referred actively playing player. But there's a second revenue stream here where you'll get 10% of any net revenue that Inferna earns from your referred players through, their cash shop or whatever. So I still think $30 is a hard target to make. It's a smaller title, but if you're interested in that type of thing and the game appeals to you for some reason, then go ahead and check it out. Yeah.
It's also worth noting that the affiliate link only lasts for 6 months.
Yeah, and we're not really sure when you get paid out because
it's 2 months after the end of a quarter, but it doesn't specify if that's a quarter of the 6 months or a fiscal quarter or what.
I think I'm going to pass on being an affiliate here.
But the description of Inferna is amazing on the Steam page.
Go ahead.
Inferna free MMORPG game.
Well,
that is literally what's in the main part, like right underneath the logo.
Hey man, you didn't want to waste any time. There it is. That's what's going
there
on.
There it is. That's what it is.
All right, let's slide over to the weekly bombs. Q, you're up.
I'm gonna give an A bomb to. I actually have to buy Christmas presents this year. I didn't know I was gonna be doing that, and I have no idea what to buy.
Who's got to get a gift?
Thanks, Q. I'll appreciate it. I love it.
Right. Yeah. Well, you guys would be easy to buy for your gamers.
Yeah, you just send Jason a pound of cocaine.
That's a yesterday joke.
Jason does not do cocaine. Full disclaimer: he does not partake in the cocaine.
But yeah, so I'm like gamers and certain I'm that's easy, but no, non-gamers are hard and non-nerds are hard for me to buy for. I don't know what to do.
A-bomb. So we've converted Jason. We've got him full of holiday spirit, and then Q is like, A-bomb, screw this. Go ahead, Jason.
I'm gonna give an A-bomb just to Planet Side Arena because it came back across my timeline the other day and yesterday and watched a bit of a video of a guy talking about how wonderful the PlanetSide 2 was. You know, so he talked about that and he had a video about it and he was talking about how much it loved it and how much it meant to him and so on. Playing a bunch of stuff, and then at the very end of the video, he's got a thing. He just like was listening to some chat from people in his squad, and here's what the people are saying. There's one guy who says, "So then they announced PlanetSide Arena. Like what? What is this?" And you look at it, it's a battle royale, and you're like, "Okay." Second guy says, 7 years after the game was launched, they're like, "You know what we need? A battle royale. That'll reinvigorate everybody." Just such a waste. If you look now, it's got like 7 people playing on charts. It's like, but don't worry, they're gonna have tech for 1,000 people in battles. That's what they're planning on. Oh no, sorry, only 5 right now. Only 5.
Jeez.
This makes me so sad.
Yeah. I'm going to make it the A-bomb trifecta and give it to Arcage for blasting larders out of the game with warning, without warning. So if you don't know, larders are this like storage bin where you can have things modified. And great in Arcage. You don't need to know exactly what a larder is. Just know that it's pretty important for some people who like to sell things and make things in-game. And so they were going to be making Gamigo was going to be making huge changes to these things. And so they blasted communication out about this to get players ready. So a bunch of players were using their larder to create and modify things to get ready for this, not being able to do certain things in the future. So they had stuff to sell and use and all this stuff. But then there was a huge issue. We don't know what. There was just a huge issue in the back end. And Gamigo had to unexpectedly nuke larders entirely. Just destroyed them, nuked them out of the game with no notice to anybody. Compensation for players is being reviewed. From the players, Omega Contagion says, I love that name, by the way. Omega, every time you comment and I use your comments on the show, I love that YouTube name, Omega Contagion. I don't know why. Dub bomb to Brad McQuaid. Without him, we would likely not have many of the games we have enjoyed over the past decades. A sentiment we certainly agree with. Go ahead, Jason.
Touring Horse says, thanks for everything, Brad, Aerodude, and McQuaid. Still playing your games. Immeasurable how much joy you've given the gamer world.
Q.
Quixotica, thanks MMO Bomb for honoring the memory of Brad McQuaid. We were glad to do it.
Yeah. And there were some people that chimed in, hey, dude, this is just the EverQuest guy. That's it. Yeah, you may only know Brad McQuaid's name as being prominently attached to one game, right? EverQuest. That may be your only... But Brad had his hand in a lot of MMO pies throughout the years. And most notably EverQuest, of course, but also a number of other titles. Huge influence, and if you didn't know how much of an influence, that's fine. But don't bash the guy and say he was a one-hit wonder just because his name was prominently tied to one product. He did quite a bit. Guza, Diablo 4 is like 2 to 3 years away. Pretty sure Path of Exile is coming much sooner. Guza, as I've already stated in the show, I agree with you. Although Jason does not. Jason.
Misfit Rain says, for Jason, hey, thanks. I don't really like the new YouTube hand nail look either, but if you hold control down and scroll your wheel, you can shrink it down some. Yeah, but doesn't that affect like my entire like...
Yeah, that's your whole zoom.
Yeah, it's like, and that just, yeah, that's no good. No. Continuing. For Q, and Q, you got covert ops option on your camera, all going into night mode. That's what it is. Although, again, we're doing this on Discord, just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems to be working fine so far.
So far.
Well, but I mean, it's if like back and forth on the other. The funny thing about the covert ops deal, though, usually when I tell people to just call me Q, they're like, "Oh, do you mean like from Star Trek or from James Bond?" And I'm like, well, either is cool. So you like whatever. But yeah.
That's what I was when I was the Star Trek the community guy in Star Trek, and I was Q at Decipher.com. That was my title.
Oh my God, Jason! I have a story for you. Okay,
Okay, all right.
We will sidebar here. So last night at my local game store, I'm playing Final Fantasy trading card game with a bunch of players, right? And me and two of the other guys go out to smoke. And these two guys have been into CCGs for as long as you and I have.
Sure.
They're a little younger than us, but they started playing when they were younger than us. So they've been playing, since the mid 90s, early 90s, mid 90s, that era.
Okay.
And so we were talking, and my son and I were playing Star Wars Destiny. We bought the starter kit and learned how to play it while we were waiting for Final Fantasy people to get there. And so, why did you buy that? And I said, I always want to try things out. And my son had wanted to learn it. We know it's, smaller. Well, do you ever think you'd invest in it? And I said, to play it. And I said, no, probably not, because there's no real community around here. I liked the game, but there isn't a real competitive community or anything around here. And he was like, oh, well, what other ones have you tried? So I run the list, right? And I said, in my teens, I played Magic the Gathering when it was Alpha, Beta, Revised, Unlimited, Fallen Empires. Like, that was my hard Magic the Gathering era. I wasn't a competitive player. I was just casual with my friends. And I said, yeah. He said, well, I like the Star Wars card game, the other one with the dice. And I said, oh, I thought you were talking about the original, the customizable card game. And I said, because I played that for a while too. And I said, oh, and I played Star Trek, the customizable card game. I tried out Jihad, which was based on Vampire the Masquerade. And I said, hell, I even tried 24, the card game. And he looked at me and he was like, talk about all-time things that didn't need a fucking card game. And
that's what I said too in meetings.
That's the thing. And I said, well, yeah, but you got to remember, everything needed a card game in that time period because Magic.
This was 2006.
Right, it was
fucking need a card game.
Granted, 24 was a little late to the party here. I said, but it was that whole mentality. And I said, it's funny you say that. Because I said a friend of mine that and he watches this cast, but not religiously. So I don't know if he's ever seen us reference it or when I showed my 24 cards on the show before. And I said the other guy on the cast, Jason Winter, I said he was actually one of the developers, the lead developer. The lead developer. I said if you go and look up that game, his name is right on the fucking top of the instruction book. I mean, he was one of the lead guys on it.
And I wrote the instruction book. You better believe it was on top.
And I said, here's the funny thing. He said he didn't want to be making that game.
What we wanted to do? You know what we wanted to do in that era? We wanted to do Heroes. That was what we wanted to do, but the powers that be decided 24.
Zach Quinto Heroes TV show.
Yeah, that show.
Yeah. That would have made more sense.
I know, but no, 24. Someone was convinced that 24 was a proper geek.
Well, here's the thing. I said I've talked to Jason about this, and he said at the time they were making it, he was actively fighting against making this. And he said, yeah. He goes, but here's the thing. Like, if you thought about it, that show kind of has an inherent gimmick for how the game could work. You could set it up where each player is going to get 12 turns, 12 each turn representing an hour, and then you have an inherent built-in timeline. That could work. And I was like, did you ever...
listen to the game designer now.
Right. And I was like, did you ever play it? And he was like, no. And I was like, then what are we even discussing here? But I just thought it was funny that when he was like, talk about shows that don't need shows that don't need a trading card game. And I was like, it's funny. The lead developer of that game is a friend of mine, and he said it at the time. that same exact sentiment. Anyway, I digress. Go ahead, Q.
Volazar, the reason I played so many hours played so many hours of what?
This is Fallout 76 when we were talking last week. What the hell? Or is it...
is because I keep refusing to believe that they screwed the Fallout game so badly. So I tried as many mods as I could try to improve it and make it feel as if it was Fallout rather than whatever the hell the best was. Never did find a mod combination that would make it feel fun to play. I am guessing there won't be another Fallout game. There will just be more 76-like trash, but no games.
Yeah, I don't know. See, Jason, I've been like... I know Jason's like, if you have to play and get through annoying stuff to get to the fun part, you screwed up the development of your game. I'm a little more generous, particularly when it comes to MMOs, on early level grinding and then good stuff later. But I don't know, if I've hit the 900-hour mark on something and I still haven't found the good stuff, I think it's my own fault at that point. Harkonis says, Ghost Recon Phantoms was amazing. Thank you. I really enjoyed that game too. And killed by gross pay to win. You are absolutely right. It was killed by absolutely gross pay to win. Question of the week, last show. Does a sequel to Path of Exile interest you? What would you like to see Grinding Gear games do differently? Omega Contagion chiming in here too says, question of the week. I'm excited for Path of Exile 2. I think I'd like to see them take it into a more first-person Dark Souls kind of format, though. Boy, that'd be neato. You ain't getting that, but it is pretty cool. It is pretty cool to think of.
We asked what would you like to see him do differently, so there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. We told him, budget and all that stuff didn't matter. So fair point.
Scroll in really close, you can almost get it to be, well, maybe third person, I guess. But
go ahead, Jason.
Isn't Dark Souls third person?
Dark Souls is third person, yes.
Yeah, so what is he talking about? Anyway, Ruel says, Path of Exile 2 is, in essence, just an expansion of the base game, but I personally like it this way instead of a whole new game. New games, separate communities will also make microtransaction purchases carry through to Path of Exile 2. That's interesting, too, that we're seeing a lot more of that now. Because we referenced this when Overwatch 2 was announced. How it's kind of like a new game, but kind of also just an expansion. And how you're going to carry over all your cosmetics, which was supposedly a dig towards Destiny 2. So maybe that's the approach companies are realizing now. You can't quite go full-on new game, leave all the old stuff behind.
Yep. Go ahead, Q.
All right, I'm actually gonna do this.
Yes, I was hoping you would. That's why I placed it exactly where it is. No, I was like, I think Q will actually do this. Yes!
All right, so Excel Kobayashi, Path of Exile 2 hype.
Boom, boom, boom. Yes.
What do I want them to do differently? Nothing, because as a developer, I know that what people think, all caps, they want isn't actually what will make them happy when you give it to them.
Thank you, J. Allen Brack.
Steve Jobs said the same thing too. So
wow, Classic seems to be doing pretty good, guys.
It did 3 months ago when it launched. Have you heard anything about it lately?
No.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? They might just be happy playing their game. So I'll just sit back and see what they deliver and judge it on its own merits and try not to let my own or other people's biases influence what I think about the game.
Fair enough. Yamikami concluding everything, saying, that's simple. I want Path of Exile to be an MMO and not a glorified single player. I'd like an MMO in that world, too.
That's interesting. One of the other talks I had with Chris Wilson, I think for the last interview, he said that the average Path of Exile session contains 1.1 players. So it's like it's just barely. Every now and then, people are basically if there are 11 people playing, they're in 10 sessions. So basically, 9 of them are solo, and the other 2 people are playing in one of them, or something like that. So
that's interesting stat. Question of the week this week. What MMO, whoops, sorry, I tried to switch cameras there and failed. What MMO needs a sequel badly? Now, forget about budgets, the companies behind them, etc. Like, are they going to close down? Have they not done things great lately? Forget that. Forget all of that. Just tell me which game warrants a sequel and should have one by now. And it doesn't have to be number 2, by the way. Could be 3 or 4 if you think Guild Wars should get a Guild Wars 3. Which ones badly need a sequel and why? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure while you're there to give us your dub bombs for something good, a bomb for something bad in the world of free-to-play gaming, or your thoughts on any of the topics we've discussed, or your questions for the panel, and we'll be sure to put it on next week's show. Until then, Q, where can everybody find you?
Goofing around on Twitter at Quinlan.
Jason?
The real question is, what CCGs badly need a sequel? And clearly it's 24.
It's 24.
We need to have 24 too. We're going to call it 25.
It's 24, the show.
It's going to be set on a different planet where there are 25 hours per day.
Go ahead, Q.
I had the X-Files CCG.
Oh, yeah.
I tried playing that once.
Man.
That was all. But anyway.
Lord of the Rings. I forgot about that one, too. I played Lord of the
Harry
Rings.
Potter.
I played both Lord of the Rings CCGs.
Yeah.
But anyway.
World of Warcraft TCG. I've got 2 boxes up on my shelf here still that aren't even, they haven't had their cards inside it even opened.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, find me on Twitter at Winter Informal, stream twitch.tv/Jason Winter. Okay, go on now.
I'm Mike Byrne. You can follow me personally right there on Twitter at magicman1. But more importantly, while you're there, follow at MMOBum so we can tweet at you with all the latest giveaways, interviews, first look videos, free-to-play cast, free-to-play weekly, and so much more. By the way, in January, we'll start seeing Zach Sharps back on the show. So until then, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.
I did not know.